It is great to be back in the great state of Oklahoma. We are on the last day of our 7-day, 12-city national barnstorming tour. We're going through the Super Tuesday states, the so-called SEC primary. We started in Nevada, we went to Minnesota, we went to Virginia, we had 2 stops in Georgia, we had 2 stops in Alabama, we had 2 stops in Tennessee, we went to Arkansas, and we're finishing today with 2 stops here in the great state of Oklahoma. And I'll tell you, all across this tour, it has been incredible. The energy, the passion, the enthusiasm that we're seeing. The grassroots are on fire. And what we're seeing all across the country is we're seeing conservatives united. Conservatives are coming together behind this campaign. We're seeing the old Reagan coalition coming back together. We're seeing evangelicals and conservatives and libertarians. We're seeing young people and Hispanics and African Americans and Jewish voters and women and Reagan Democrats all coming together. And that from day one has been the key to victory. If conservatives unite, we win. And we're seeing that happening more and more every day. Happy to answer any questions.
Senator, do you think your reputation as somewhat abrasive and unwilling to compromise might affect your chances in a general election or your ability to govern?
Well, look, I understand that folks in the press want Republicans to go to Washington and be docile and house-trained. They want Republicans to behave, sadly, like Republican leadership does, rolling over and funding the entirety of the Obama agenda, giving in to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and funding Obamacare and funding executive amnesty and funding Planned Parenthood and funding the catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal and funding President Obama's indefensible plan to bring Syrian refugees to this country, even though the FBI has told us they cannot vet those refugees to make sure they're not ISIS terrorists. But it is only in the crazy environs of Washington, D.C., the establishment, and a lot of folks in the press, that people want Republicans to surrender more. I'll tell you what the American people want, is they want leaders who actually do what we say. They want leaders who will stand up and follow through and defend the Constitution and defend our freedom and stand with the American people. And I think that's precisely why our campaign is seeing such tremendous energy. And you know, you talk about the general election. Every stop we have across the country, people come up and say, I'm a Democrat. I voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012, and yet I'm with you. You know, some of the folks who travel with us nationally, they may remember we were in Iowa at a coffee shop, standing at a soda fountain. I was visiting with a couple of folks there in Iowa, mentioning that one after the other we hear Democrats saying that the next person that we talked to was a fellow named Randy. An older man with a white beard. He said he was a Vietnam veteran. He said exactly that. He said, I voted for Obama in 2008. This election, I'm with you. And I called to the folks who were with us. I said, look, did you get that on tape? Now, I'll note, nobody's shown it on here. But it was interesting because I didn't know he was the next fellow sitting in line, but he happened to be literally the next person at the soda fountain. In fact, I'll tell you, the last time I was in Tulsa, a man walked up to me. He was an older man, had calluses on his hand, had grease on his shirt. He was a working man. And he said, Ted, I've been a registered Democrat my whole life. He said, this morning I went to the county clerk's office and changed my registration to Republican to come vote for me. How do we win the general election? In November 2016, we do 2 things. Number 1, we bring back to the polls the millions of conservatives that stayed home in 2008 and 2012. We bring back the millions of evangelical Christians, the millions of Reagan Democrats. But number 2, we stand and fight for the working men and women of this country. If you look at the folks who are here, I haven't seen the crowd here, but I can tell you the folks are coming out to every rally we have. It's not the country clubs. It's not the rich and powerful. The people who are at rally after rally after rally are working men and women. It's truck drivers and mechanics and police officers and firemen and teachers and nurses. It's the working men and women of America who've been hammered for 7 years by the Obama-Clinton economy, who want to believe again in the promise of America. And we run in the general election against the bipartisan corruption of Washington that Hillary Clinton embodies. That's how we win.
Senator Cruz.
Satisfied. The terrorism has become one of the major issues for Americans, and some of your Democratic opponents, presumed Democratic opponents, made the point that American Muslims are kind of our first line of defense against lone wolf terrorists and against people coming into the country because they're in that community, they see what's going on. How would you respond to that, and can you tie that into Mr. Trump's call to ban all Muslims?
There's no doubt following Paris and San Bernardino, the seriousness of this election has risen dramatically. The most important determination that Americans are making is who is prepared to be commander-in-chief, who has the experience, who has the judgment, who has the strength, who has the clarity of vision. And it's particularly perilous right now because we have a president in Barack Obama who is utterly unable and unwilling to keep this country safe. The most important obligation of our president is to be commander-in-chief and keep this nation safe. And both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have demonstrated they are manifestly unfit to do so. They are unwilling as a political matter to even utter the words radical Islamic terrorism, much less develop and implement a coherent strategy to defeat it. This makes no sense. They're ostriches sticking their heads in the sand. They are captives of political correctness, and political correctness is costing American lives. If I'm elected president, we will have a commander-in-chief who makes clear to the world, we will defeat radical Islamic terrorism. And we won't weaken, we won't degrade, but we will utterly destroy ISIS. We need a clarity and a focus so that every militant on the face of the planet knows if you go and take up arms, if you join ISIS and wage jihad against the United States of America, if you attempt to murder innocent Americans, you're signing your death warrant. That's what the American people need and deserve. And if I am commander-in-chief, if I am elected president every day, my focus will be keeping this country safe.
Senator Cruz, the Washington Post, you fired back against the Washington Post for releasing that political depiction of your daughters as monkeys. They have since took down the cartoon, and they now say they released a editor's note saying that they understood why it was released, but that it shouldn't have been released. Do you accept that explanation?
Oh, listen, it's Christmas time. It's a time to be with your family. It's a time to play with your kids. I'm looking forward tonight to being with my little girls and having a wonderful Christmas by the tree. You know, I have to admit, yesterday when I saw that cartoon, not much ticks me off. But making fun of my girls, that'll do it. That tweet that I sent, I typed that out on my iPhone. And listen, I mean, all of us learned in kindergarten, don't hit little girls. It's not complicated. Don't make fun of a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old girl. Listen, everyone expects the mainstream media to be liberal, to be biased. Folks want to attack me, knock yourself out. That's part of the process. I signed up for that, that's fine. But my girls didn't sign up for that. And I have to say, you know, when people ask me what's the hardest part of the campaign, the single hardest part of the campaign is being away from my daughters. Is getting up and getting on an airplane and leaving. And not being able to kiss my daughters good night, not being able to read them a bedtime story. And so it used to be for a long time the rules across the board that kids are off limits. That should be the rules. Don't mess with our kids. Don't mess with my kids. Don't mess with Marco's kids. Don't mess with Hillary's kids. Don't mess with anybody's kids. Leave kids alone. And if the media wants to attack and ridicule every Republican, well, that's what they're going to do. But leave our kids alone.
What do you think about the support that you've been getting from Senator Rubio, for example?
Look, it's been very encouraged. Marco has reached out and publicly supported me. Jeb has reached out and publicly supported me. Donald Trump just tweeted out and publicly supported me. You know, I have appreciated that. There ought to be unanimity, and you know what? There shouldn't be a partisan line. It should be true for both Democrats and Republicans. We ought to agree, leave our kids alone. Let's argue about marginal tax rates. Let's argue about policy, but don't be attacking 5-year-old girls. That has no place in politics. And I appreciate that the Post pulled it down. It was the right thing to do, and I appreciate they did that.
Senator Cruz, you report out about saying that fighting gay marriage wouldn't be a top priority for you in the administration. What did you say to that?
Oh, look, it was a report of a secret tape in a meeting where I said the exact same thing on the secret tape that I've said on TV over and over again, which is I'm a constitutionalist. My priority is defending the Constitution, and under the Constitution, marriage is a question for the states. In fact, it was striking. You know, Politico runs this, banner headline, secret tape, and it's almost word for word what I said on Jay Leno. It's almost word for word what I said on Stephen Colbert. It ain't very secret. I know Colbert may not have a ton of viewers, but saying it on national TV is not a great plan for keeping something secret. So I will say it's amusing reading the anonymous quote from advisors from other campaigns saying, oh, this is devastating, this is going to be a real problem. He says in private meetings the same thing he says publicly. Look, it's silliness. But no one should be surprised. The dynamic we're seeing in this race is that conservatives are uniting behind our campaign. A few days ago, Donald Trump observed that he thought this race may well come down to a two-man race between him and me. I think that's entirely possible. And so nobody should be surprised that the other candidates are panicking. And their response is to attack. Their response is to claim everything is a scandal. It shows that I'm really the embodiment of evil. Okay, fine. Knock yourself out. The nice thing is the voters are smarter than a lot of people give them credit for. And the voters can tell when other candidates are throwing rocks. What tends to happen, we've seen when other candidates start getting really nasty, suddenly their support starts dropping. I think the American people are looking for a leader who has a positive, optimistic, conservative vision. And so while others have thrown rocks back and forth, I haven't been willing to play that game, and I'm not going to start now. I'm going to keep focused on my record, on my positive, optimistic, conservative vision for this country. And I could not be more encouraged by seeing the grassroots coming together. Our team here in Oklahoma is going to be a critical state in this primary. Oklahoma is voting now on Super Tuesday. The way it's going to work, the first 4 states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, they go first as they always have. But this year is different. 10 days after South Carolina is Super Tuesday. It's the so-called SEC primary. I think Super Tuesday will be a critical turning point in the primary. Super Tuesday is the most delegates that are awarded on a single day. And it's Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. It's southern states, it's conservative states, military veterans, gun owners. These are fantastic states, states where we've got a lot of commonality, states where our grassroots team is incredible. It is stronger than any other candidate in every one of these Super Tuesday states across the SEC. And so the first 4 states we are positioned to do, I believe, very well in each of the first 4 states. We've got fantastic teams on the ground. We're the only campaign that has announced county chairs in all 171 counties in each of the first 4 states. But we're also the only campaign that has announced congressional district chairs in all 163 congressional districts in the first 24 states through March 14th. And I think Super Tuesday is teed up to be a tremendously good day for our campaign. And Oklahoma is going to play a critical part in that. Oklahoma, the role of the voters of Oklahoma, I believe, is going to be to help ensure that the next Republican nominee for president, the next president, is a real and a proven conservative. And I could not be more encouraged by the grassroots support we've got in Oklahoma and nationally. Nationally we've got over 160,000 volunteers. We have roughly 600,000 contributions, people going to tedcruz.org contributing online. That's the strength of the campaign. That's the passion of the campaign, is the grassroots, and every day it's getting stronger and stronger, and I'm very encouraged. And with that, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Why am I so optimistic? Because the same thing is happening again. All across Oklahoma, all across this country, people are waking up. When we launched this campaign on March 23rd at Liberty University, the New York Times promptly opined, Cruz cannot win because the Washington elites despise him. I kind of thought that was the whole